Hello YouTube, this is Coder back with another stream, and we're going to be continuing from yesterday, the project that we started, where we're going to go over an API example that we're going to be doing using Compose, and so there we had to fix a little issue with the view model launch method. And so right now, as you can see on the screen, I'm giving you guys some time to go ahead and copy down the dependencies that we need so far. So these are the dependencies that you will put in your, make sure that you have in your build.gradle file so that everything can work correctly. And so I'm gonna go over how we get over the hurdle we left off with yesterday. And I hope y'all are having a wonderful day so far. And also, I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you like this kind of thing and like Android development tutorials, tech tutorials, and things like that. Comment on this video and like this video. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started and continue with the lesson that we have been going over so far. And I'm gonna be posting the source code to this later. But if you want to catch up to where we are at right now, please watch the previous video on part 1 of the series. And if you follow that, you should be totally caught up with what we are going over today. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And so I'm going to go ahead and mute the music here. And so right now I have it here on our Android Studio. And so you can also follow along on your own Android Studio. And so here we have our dependencies. And now, so to cap off what we did from yesterday, we added a package called model and a package called network and a package called view model and a package called views. And the reason why we're adding these folders with these names is we're trying to follow the model, view model format of things. And so in our model is going to handle the data. So we have a data class structured of what's going to come back from our response. And so we have our API service, and inside our API service, this is going to be some of the setup we need to do in order to call the call this URL with the endpoint of posts. So we're going to get the data from the post, and this commented out is the URL you all can also use for your testing purposes as well. But when we call, so this is how we're calling the API inside our Android app, which this API service method is part of the setup. And then we have the retrofit instance, and this is building the retrofit and Moshi components that we need in order to successfully make the API call. And so yeah, that was a recap. And then inside our view model, I went ahead and created our post view model, which is going to be our thing that houses the live data, and it's going to fetch the data from the response and put it in our live data, which is a temporary list in our memory that it keeps track of what we have. And every time that updates, it will also post to our UI. So when an application launches, it takes probably a couple moments to send to the server to request the API data. And during that time, of course, your screen will be blank and will not have that data. So it will still, draw the user interface, but it also has to wait a couple seconds until the data is available. And then once that data is available, then it will write the contents of the data to the screen. And so, when we are making updates, when we're making our API call, we have to make that call on another thread. And so that's what that launch does, is it's a quarantine scope which allows us to make the fetch on another thread. And so also the issue from yesterday, we were not able to use the view model scope because we need to inherit the view model. So yesterday we had post view model by itself. So what you all need to do is go ahead and add this to inherit from view model. Once we inherit from view model, then we're able to use the view model scope.launch. So if you don't have this, please add that right now in order for it to work. And make sure you have the dependencies I showed you all to add to the Gradle earlier too. All right, we're gonna go ahead and implement the fetch post function that we have there. So with our fetch post, we need a try catch statement. So try catch statement is gonna help us with the error handling, so that if something goes wrong and the data is not fetched, then the app will not crash if we have a try catch statement. So we're going to go ahead and start out with our try here, and then we will need our catch statement as well here. So yeah, that's the catch. And then we need to implement what we want to try. So this catch will catch the error, the exception here, instead of crashing the app. And then we're going to go ahead and implement that pretty soon here too. So now, with the try, what we're going to try is we need to have a variable that's the response that's going to be getting the post from our services method, which we already implemented. So let's go ahead and put that here inside our try. So we have a variable here, the response, and then we're going to input the retrofit instance. And so yeah, so this is the response variable, and then we're gonna go ahead and get posts because, for instance, we implemented So from this code that we implemented here inside the retrofit instance, we were able to put that in our view model. So our view model, and then we're getting the posts, which it's using this method, get posts inside our API service here. So that's our method. So we're gonna get the response, which is gonna be a list of posts. All right, and let's return to our view model. And then, all right, we made that variable, which is going to be our response. And then the next thing is we need an if statement. So this if statement, so in this if statement, we're checking if the response is successful. So with the response, checking dot is successful. So I just, have to make sure response. Okay. This one's not spelled right, so yes, of course. So if response is successful, then we're going to log the body. So what this code does is, if the response is successful, we're going to say this message inside the fetch post method, and using the tag post view model. So inside the tag post view model, we're going to say success. The response body is. So if it's successful, we'll be able to successfully display the contents to the log. And, log means, if you see this tab down here, says logcat. Once you click on logcat, you can see where this will be logged. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later once we finish our implementation of the fetch post method. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to set our body, our response body, to a variable. So, and this is gonna, be, of course, still inside the if it is successful. I'm gonna set our, I'm calling it JResponse. You can call it anything you want. So JResponse equals response.body. And then we're going to have another if statement. And in this if statement, we're going to be checking if the JResponse is null or not. And then if it is not null, we're going to go ahead and set our live data to our response, our response.body. So we're first checking to make sure, hey, we actually got data here. If we don't have data, we're not going to set it. But if we do have data, we're going to go ahead and set it. And, once we set it, it will update our live data to house the response. And once the live data is set, then an observer will be triggered later in our UI to actually set the to actually update the UI. But we're not working on the UI right now. We're working on the view model, that manages the data. So we're going to make sure that the view model has the data in order to display it. And we're going to simply log that to our logcat instead of the screen, just for debugging purposes at first. So now, after that, we're going to do another log here where we're going to log the post.value. So yeah, we're making sure that this post is populated with the JResponse. And so we're going to, so that's for debug purposes. You may not really need this one if, JResponse is getting the value successfully. Then, well, I mean, yeah, this is good so that you can know that, hey, we do have actual data than just null. Then, hey, the post value did get populated, so that we know that 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 step has passed. So, all right. So we at this point should have made a successful API call in Android. And now, also, we're going to implement the exception. So we're going to do the error handling. So in the catch, you can do whatever you want, but typically you want to log whatever the error is. So it's going to say fetch post error, and then you use e dot message, and this will log to the logcat. All right. And so we have implemented our view model, which will have fetch posts. And now we have to call fetch posts. So in order to call the fetch post, we will do that inside our where we're going to have our UI. So let's see. So inside our main activity, so this is next we're going to go to our main activity. And then inside our main activity, we have like a bunch of like we have the greeting here, which we don't need that code really anymore. So we're going to go ahead and also, this isn't really much. of a UI tutorial. This tutorial the goal of this tutorial is to successfully display the API response to the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this code here. And I'm gonna go ahead and delete these guys as well. And so once I delete these things, nothing will display to our emulator so far. So what we need to do in our view control, our main activity, is we need our view model variable. So before we set the contents, we can go ahead and call our view model here. And this will go ahead and we got to import that guy, our post view model. All right, so we imported that guy. So here we have our val view model. And then once we do that, let us go ahead and see if we can successfully call our fetch post method. And so we're going to go ahead and do that inside our set contents. So the way we're going to do that is so inside the set content is the area where we set our UI and set our use components. So here we're doing our initial setup launched effect, and we're going to call our view model dot fetch post inside this launch effect, so that we can set up calling it in and another thread, of course. And when we do that, we're not displaying anything onto the screen yet. We're going to be checking if our logs work that we set up within the fetch post method. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let me also get the tag that we need to filter our logs. So let me go to to go to like the different methods, I hit command and then click on it. You could probably hit control and then click on it in Windows to go to the different functions. Why I'm going back here is I'm going to get this tag, post view model. This tag is the tag to our log statements. So the reason I'm doing that is in our main activity. Well, actually, not in our main activity, but in the actual log, when we run the app, we can filter out the tag in this box here. So I'm gonna post the tag here. So we are filtering out post view model. So whatever log has this tag, it should show us that instead of all that other extra stuff. So now let us go ahead and run our application. And it's unnecessary to see the emulator right now because the emulator is only displaying a white screen because we have not implemented displaying it to the screen yet. This time we're just making sure we're getting the data, and the way we tell we got the data is through the logs. So let's go ahead and play the application. And again, we're not looking at the emulator. We're going to be looking at the logs. All right, it has successfully played. And when you successfully play it, it automatically goes off of the actual logcat tab. So I'm going to go back to our logcat tab. And okay, this is a common issue. Fetch post error canceled due to java.lang.security exception, permission denied. And so our try catch actually worked. Instead of crashing the application, or it's still crashed in this case, but however, it told us the actual explanation of the error. So you see where it says fetch post error canceled due to Java, this yellow part here. This actually is the code that we have in our post view model file. And then, when we try to do the fetch post and then we go down to our catch, we see that inside our log.i, we see fetch post error and then e.message. So this is the importance of error handling. So, just this line here was able to accurately tell us what it was wrong in our fetch. So anyway, missing internet permission. In order to fix that, we need to set the permission inside our Android manifest.xml file. So inside your file project folders, scroll all the way up to the manifest. And then inside the manifest, you should see the Android manifest.xml. And then, inside the Android manifest.xml, there's a special XML code that you need to put in there in order to get permission of the application to access the internet. And so what you want to do is after the XML and S here, you're gonna, before this application tag, you're going to go ahead and put this line. And this line, essentially says android.permission.internet, which, allows the user to accept that this application will, I'm sorry, this application will be able to access the internet. Because when we make an API call, it does have to contact the server across the internet in order to get this data. This data will not be on your local machine, and in order to get this remote data from across the internet, you need to have this code here. So I've given you guys a little bit of time to go ahead and type this or reference this on Google or anything like that, so that you can go ahead and put this inside your Android manifest.xml file. Alright, I hope you guys successfully have that line there now. And so let us go ahead, since we, have that, let's see what happens now in our application when we play it. All right, and for whatever reason, when you play it, it goes off of the log cap tab and goes to this run. So I gotta click on the log cat again to see what happened. All right, this is a good sign. All right, so is that our so we did have these logs show up here. It's quite a bit of data that post data that we're getting from the API, but we can see that this time it was successful. The response body is, these things. And so we're successfully getting the response data, which is, I don't know what language this is. This might be Latin or something, but this is the correct data that we are getting that's outputted here. And so yeah, that's the logs that we have inside our view model. And then we are logging this one. And then our fetch, let's see if we have this as well. So if we have this, that means our data was successfully set. Okay, post dot value was successfully set. So we have successfully retrieved our data from the API across the internet. And now what is left is we need to display it to our screen. And so congratulations if you have made it this far. This is the probably the most basic way you can make an API call in Android. And so this is an important foundation because I would say, a lot of apps, if not most apps, access APIs. And, in Android, it can take some boilerplate code and some, I guess, engineering in order to set this up. But once you have this set up, it should be easy after that. So, all right. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go to our main activity, and we're going to finish displaying the data to the screen. So, all right. And so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to make a composable, and it's going to be called post lists. And so it's going to be responsible for displaying the posts to the screen, the list of posts to the screen. So, all right. Now, for the composable, we can make this outside of our, main activity. And we're going to name this the post list. And then I'm going to import the class post. And again, this API data is just free placeholder data that you can test that if your application is successfully able to call from the API. It's a test API basically. All right. And then so we have the post list. It takes in a parameter of the posts that we will get from our live data. And then we will make a lazy column. So lazy columns are like the replacement of recycler views. Recycler views were used in the XML layout, but with Compose, now we can use lazy column, which makes it much less lines of code in order to display a list. So actually our lazy column is not going to take in anything. We're just going to have it here like that. And then inside the actual lazy column, we call a method called items. And then inside the items, we're going to pass in the posts that we have received from our post list there. And then also within our items, we're going to put the text for each post. We're going to display the title. For each post, we're going to display the title. And then all right. So posts acquired int list.posts. So we have the posts here. And then we have the items. All right. And for our lazy column, we need to make sure we also have the right dependencies. So all right. And let's see. So do we have the dot items? All right. So we need lazy dot items. So make sure you guys have this dependency here, the Android X compose.foundation.lazy.items, and then that should take care of the error down here. All right, so we have implemented the post list function composable. Now we need to display that composable, which has our lazy column. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to, you can go ahead and use kind of the boilerplate code for the theme and surface. So I'm going to go ahead and include that. after our view model fetch post call. Actually, let me do this. Okay. Let me see. Set our UI. Not name. It's this guy. Alright, so this is the name of the theme that I have. However, you guys can probably have a different name or any name you want here. So this is, getting that from our, when we made our template, it automatically generated that theme code. So that's where that comes from. It has that in the UI.theme folder. It has color, theme.kt, and type.kt, which was automatically generated. And you can modify those different values how you guys want. So now we have the surface here, which, you can set, the background to your theme or whatever you want to set the background to. But anyway, the important part of this is inside this code, we're going to go ahead and call our post list. So basically, we have our post there. And okay, also we need to go ahead and this is also very important too, that I didn't make the post variable yet, but also when you make the post variable, we're using this method called observe as state, which is very important for updating the UI whenever the screen whenever the API becomes available and updates the live data. So what I'm talking about is I'm gonna go ahead and declare this variable here called post, and we have to essentially make sure we're using observe as state in order for it to update properly, because this is going to be observing our live data. So basically, whenever our live data changes, this will update our user interface. So, all right, now we need to actually make sure we include the import for that. Sometimes in Compose it has problems finding the correct import, but what we need to import is this. And so let's see, and also live data dot observe state. So it doesn't know what that is. So there's something additional we probably need in the actual Gradle file. So just give me 1 second. So inside the Gradle file, I'm gonna need compose. So let us try this. Let's go to our let's go back to our Gradle file and then go to our module, Gradle file, and then inside that, let's go ahead and add this dependency, the androidx.compose.runtime.runtime -live there. Let me go ahead and sync that just to make sure, to see if that's the one that we need. Okay, and then we're going to go back to our... Alright, so perfect. It looks like it's aware of this now. Then we gotta import one more thing, which was this get value, in order for that to work. So make sure you guys have these imports inside your main.activity, and also make sure that you have this guy here inside your dependencies, inside your Gradle module file, in order to use the observer for your compose. And then let us go back to our main.activity. All right. And then inside our main activity, all right, we have declared our post here and attached an observer to it. And then down here, we're checking if the post, so essentially what this is saying is, if the post is not null, then let's go ahead and display it on the screen. And this observer is set to observe whenever this is updated. Whenever post is updated, then it's going to go ahead and go forth and update our UI here if it's not null. So that should be all we need in order to display the data that we got from the API on the screen. So we're going to run it here in just a second. Alright, so yeah, that looks like all the code that we need so far. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And so let me go ahead and get the emulator visible as well. So Let me go ahead and turn the emulator on real quick so that you all can see that. So give me just 1 second on that. Window, okay. Display capture. All right. So you all should be able to see the emulator now. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this. And let's see what happens. All right. So we have successfully displayed the data from an API into our screen in Jetpack Compose. So you can use this project as like a base to build Jetpack Compose applications that tap into APIs. So you'll have the basic structure to get started, and you'll have this template code here. I'm going to go ahead and be making this available on GitHub soon. I'm gonna post it in the description, of course. But okay. So that's what our goal was for this particular lesson. And stay tuned for more videos. Subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and comment on the video. And yeah. And well, as always, stay coding. All right. Bye.